at the JS Group Suite at the Channel Partners Conference in Las Vegas. And it is the last episode of the day of Ecosystem Chronicles. And last but not least, we've got someone who is an innovator and a one of the top product guys when it comes to partner tech and channel tech. And his name is Gary Sabin. And we have a really great topic because we're talking about how in the movie The Martian, right? We're looking at The Martian and saying, they didn't have much time to do a whole lot to make a difference to survive. And there's a lot of parallels to the economic environment right now and for channel organizations right now where everyone's being asked to do more with less. And some of the actual channel partner programs are even on the brink of possibly falling apart unless you come up with those solutions to save it and do something right. So from Lessons from the Martian, we're bringing Gary Sabin on. He's head of product, or I guess VP of product for InPartner, which is the leading partner relationship management platform in the channel, in the partner ecosystem. And he has been with InPartner for about 9 years, so he's seen it go through all sorts of evolution to be where it is today. And we want to talk specifically about how partner intelligence in the InPartner platform and in the industry is critical right now for survival. So, Gary, welcome. Thank you for coming on and talking with me.
Thank you, Dean. Happy to be here. You invoked the Martian is a little bit of a runaway analogy, but I think it's so apt for what we're dealing with right now in channel. We just came off of in Partner Conference, which is an industry conference that we host and sponsor, and so much of the discussion, as it is here at the show as well, is around how many things that we're being asked to do in an ever increasingly complex environment. Right, we're being asked to now deal with co-sales, a wider definition of ecosystem. We have more complexity than we've ever had in terms of number of programs and types of partners and things that we're managing and working with, and the expectations to grow revenue. But we are also having the actual reduction of budgets. We've seen entire teams not only impacted, but like erased, if you will, from within the roles of the company. We've had budget slash of all these things. And so we're trying to do an increasing amount of complex things. We're trying to do an increasing amount of, carry increasing amount of water, if you will, in terms of bringing home the bacon for the organizations we represent. But we're doing so in very austere conditions, right? So it is a little bit like the Martian in that it's not too hyperbolic to say it's a little do or die. It's a little bit life and death for some of us who need to justify our budget, needs to justify the continuance of our team. We have to be able to science the heck out of what we're doing, right, and ensure that we're able to grow potatoes in space, basically, is what it sometimes feels like we're trying to do. And so how do we actually go about doing that? So, we spend a lot of time, sure, on the product side of things, how we actually facilitate that within our, our platform and our sphere of influence in our ecosystem. But really the concept at large is an essential one that heads of channels and folks who are sponsoring these programs are being faced with right now, which is, how do I actually measure the impact I'm having? We have a little bit of an analogy within the InPartner space of sometimes channel management is a little bit like blowing dandelions into a wind. You kind of you do a lot of things, you build relationships, and you sort of just hope that those land and propagate everywhere. But you can't always fully trace it, and you can't always be really data-driven and improving and operationalizing and, I dare I say, optimizing that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this really is kind of the focus of. And I think what we're advising people to do is really apply truly the scientific method, if you will, to continuous improvement within your ecosystem. We have to define first of all, start measuring something, set a target, define a hypothesis, operationalize that, and that crucial loop that we oftentimes miss in channel, either A, because we don't have the tools, we don't have the resources, whatever the case may be, right? It's just too much data to consume. To be able to actually measure back and see what was the thing that made the difference and what's the next thing that's going to make a difference, right? And that's where I think, things like Partner Optimizer and what you're doing here are so fantastic, is because it actually helps to bring and close that loop from the sort of scientific outcome of those experiments to really dial in what was the cause and effect and what's going to be the source for that next big ROI dollar that you're going to be able to point to tell your CRO, your CFO, You gave me $1, I gave you back 5, and I can show you how that's a repeatable process with data and how I can really optimize things for it. Very exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It is exciting. And it's interesting because it is a cyclical thing, right? It's not a static one and done type of exercise of learning about your partners or partner intelligence to give you an insight, because it's a dynamically changing environment. And so imagine knowing what's in your PRM and which partners are successful, and then trying to surface those lookalikes to them, because that will help move the needle. That's an example of a strategy of a better together when you're using partner intelligence and partner optimizer coupled with the PRM, where you're really learning which ones are activating and truly partnering. Then you can use that to find the best ones both within your existing channel as well as the net new ones who have the highest propensity to do the same.
Correct. It's that correlation and causation. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're just correlated, right? Pun intended. But it's always consistently trying to optimize for that. I don't know that you'll ever get to a point where you're going to say, my ecosystem is optimized, right? It's an ongoing, continuous improvement, upward spiral, hopefully. But I think where a lot of what excites me, is there's so much better together opportunity in terms of being able to bring to bear data that we historically have maybe had, but in disparate places in channel management, with data that we haven't necessarily had, and start to actually do and see the cause-effect relationship on both sides. So, for example, we've had revenue data, and it's usually been disconnected maybe from some of the other systems we're using. And then we also have some general semblance of data around engagement and partners that we have. We know their taxonomy, but we haven't always been able to plug that together and understand what behaviors, what other factors about a particular partner actually tie to true outcomes sort of on the field, if you will, right? And then more importantly, what help when we use that to figure out an ideal partner profile, how do we find more partners who ostensibly look just like them, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's this very synergistic feedback loop of say, we found some partners that look like they would be well suited to succeeding in the jungle that you play in, right? They're well adapted for that. And then we can actually follow them through and see what the true ROI, revenue impact, revenue hits the road influence to overall revenue was. Backfeed that and continually refine that process so we get to be almost crystal ball, clairvoyant in terms of predicting which partner is going to be effective in which area, and then actually supplying and finding more of those that are going to be well suited to that.
Right. Makes total sense. Plus, you get to learn not only just the lookalikes from a scientific standpoint, but then you get to look at the how and the why based upon their business attributes, right? Because it's something that they just haven't had visibility into before. Yep. You know what a standard IPP looks like, a standard ideal partner profile, which from a team, a stakeholder team. But when you start to look at what those partners are and how they look alike, as opposed to what you think your standard ideal partner profile is, there's a disparity between them, because partners have a lot more going on than just selling of your product or marketing or whatever it is of your product. So you get to see this whole holistic approach to who these partners are, what they care about, and then find those lookalikes of who these partners are.
Right. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you, when it comes to targeting and customization to market to and through those partners, what are you seeing these days? Is there a bigger attention to that right now?
There is, for a variety of reasons. We all know the 80-20 rule in channel is actually like 97-3, right? The greater principle is alive and well. Simply because there aren't the resources to deal with large quantities of partners. They have to be ideally super optimized, right? Number two, there's a little bit of a wider bit of data that's going into actually defining what is a contributing partner. It's not just number of deals per se with their name on it, because not everything's a nice straight reseller, but what is the net overall influence that they're having to the total holistic revenue picture coming in through your channel program. And then, of course, it's always coming back to, how do I find more of those? People always say, gosh, my top 3 partners, if I had 4 more of those just like it, I could hit my number. I wouldn't even need, however long of a tail after that. And I think that's always the big piece of it is realizing that there's more data to be consumed to help find that as much as there is data to be consumed in defining it, right? And what I mean by that is we have, like, within, let's say you're using a platform like a partner, you know what partners did what and what those outcomes were, right? So you can use that to sort of hone in on an IPP like you noted. But what we don't have always available to us is the data of that partner's performance outside of our own space, our own sphere, our own ecosystem. That also gives you a pretty good idea that, gosh, if this person was hitting 10 home runs for the other team, likely that they can come in and do that here. So that's going to recruit. And I think that's an area where people are really need to be optimizing, is realizing, there are partners who are good at selling, partners who are good at marketing. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're not. But based off of what my program's missing, how do I really go out and get the right added personnel to run the type of playbook that I'm trying to run within my program, who has a proven track record even outside my group, that has a high propensity to translate in? Because I'm probably not going to have that data readily available for me in a spreadsheet. It's got to come from some outside, enrichment, and that's where, again, bringing the in-program performance around with the outside of program, we know more public available, like Partner Optimizer has that data available, makes for that perfect matchmaking process.
Yeah, and that goes down as well to a topic that Jay McBain likes to talk about, which is wallet share. If you are looking at a partner and you think you've got this great partner, but then you can look at the data, at least the publicly available data that we mine for, and you're able to see that that partner is actually giving more digital alignment, more love, more hand holding, whatever you may want to call it, more promotion to a competitor. That's a really important insight to know and pay attention to, because then you say, are they doing enough with us to where we can actually try to persuade them to come back over, or do we let them go? Because sometimes letting go of a partner who might be overly committed and overly loyal to a competitor is a smart thing to do. So once you have access to insights like that, instead of being proud of every partner you have, you may want to realize which ones are also proud of being your partner and work with those more to activate and engage them in wallet share.
Sometimes understanding where to divest from is as important as where to invest in. Right? I think those are two sides of the coin, because ultimately you can only deal with a certain amount of scale, a certain amount of partners that can be managed in a way that is highly synergistic, and you have to really be focused on the ones that are going to be doing that. I think to your point, a big talk point for, I think, the industry this year in general is attribution. We have, again, more partners that we are doing things that are less direct transactional, but we are having wider recognition of how important they are for the overall ecosystem, overall uplift to our brands and our programs and marketplace, and attribution, not only in terms of how they impact certain deals, but how they're impacting our brand at a macro level versus competitive and your sorts of things. So being able to measure that with data that, again, most folks who are probably listening to this, who are running channel programs, they're not going to have access to that data. It's going to have to come from somewhere, somebody whose day job it is to go out and try to find and mine and bring together all that data into something that's cohesive, that's going to give you a good read on what's their overall either contribution or detraction from my brand and overall revenue uplift in the marketplace. Both sides of that coin. And that's where you have to be able to do really large amounts of data analysis, either yourself, which again, most people don't have the ability to do, or you're going to have to rely on some tooling and platform that's going to bring that together and give you that insight in a little bit more packaged with a bow on it sort of way. But behind the scenes, it's all just that scientific method, massive amounts of data, and even AI, right? Buzzword of the year, right? Applied into that to help us make us, smarter and, again, dare I say, optimized.
Right. Well, there's also things you can do once you have the data and a baseline to know how a partner is aligned with you, to then be able to measure going forward how it's changing over time. So let's say you want to invest in an MDF fund or a special offer to them that says, if you start to market my products and solutions more, we'll give you certain additional benefits, right? And you can now trace that with a product like Partner Optimizer, because you can see what's changing and if they're actually buying into and committing and doing those campaigns. And if you have to do that over 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 partners, you can now do that instantly or automatically through a mechanism, as opposed to go to each one of their digital profiles and try to see what did they do, it's, how far down is it, and are they really talking about it.
So true.
Yeah, so there are tools out there now that allow you to have these hypotheses, allow you to have campaigns and strategies, and monitor them.
I think and that's a good point, because partners never arrive and stay stagnant, right? They're always trending. It's up or down, right? Hopefully up or down, but
Right.
they change. Their business model change. The partnerships are still, at the end of the day, yes, they're business entities run by people. Those people rotate,
Yep.
and so it's always about watching the trend and ensure it's going up and down. But it's never, this partner is now up and steady state, and that's why it's a constant vigilant
Exactly.
process to continue to refine.
I so agree with you. It's funny because sometimes we get some of our customer prospects come to us and say, "We just want a list. We want a list of prospects." And it's like, well, are you sure you just want a list? Because, yeah, you may want a set of partners to go recruit now, but is it going to be the same in 2 or 3 months, or even 6 months or a year? Because the market's changing, and what you care about in a partner is changing. Your products are changing. The partners are changing. So if you have something that you can always refer back to and do those iterations and monitor, you're so much smarter as a result.
It's not unlike how you have to go about trying to find and continually attract and target end customers, right?
Right.
It's really that same exact level of rigor, science, data applied to a adjacent but slightly different use case of finding, recruiting, retaining, and empowering top partners.
Yeah, yeah. So, are you seeing in your in your customer base and in people you speak to out there that they are doing more in expanding the types of partners in their ecosystem?
Absolutely. They if they aren't doing, they're at least daydreaming about doing. Right. It's certainly the talk in the air, if nothing else. And some of that is it's a little bit of a wider tent, in that they're realizing, hey, we focused a lot on traditional, like, transacting partners, which is always at the tail end of the buying, the real buyer's journey, the buying decision process. But who are the potential partners who are having touch points and influences earlier up in the awareness part of that process? And a lot of times they find those are known entities through the organization, right? Just last week, I was sitting in this is a large Fortune 100 multinational, and there is the marketing team, and then there's the channel partner marketing, partner operation, and they finally realize we're actually kind of dealing with the same people. It's just a lot of, especially on the influence side and some of those other things, that's always been the purvey of the marketing team, who kind of does a one or two and done kind of a thing, kind of a remote deal. And so a lot of times the channel teams are starting to just realize, as I'm widening in the definition of what goes into of a partner, right? I need to now take and be more strategic in pursuing and working with those partners and bringing them sort of into the fold, if you were to be strategically and diligent, intentionally managed to be a big uplifting force in my program, rather than this kind of pre-sales process afterthought that marketing's doing that, and that just generates leads, and I'll take it from there.
Yeah.
But in fact, looking at the total funnel pipeline and realizing all the people involved with that are people that need to be actively part of your ecosystem and managed accordingly. And
Absolutely.
Recruited, profiled, monitored, trended. So.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, because even if it's someone that you're paying, like an advertiser or a publication or a conference, they too are imprinting and having influence on your brand and those customers, and so they are effectively partners.
TikTok influencers are partners to many brands who are now forward thinking and looking at that more holistically.
Yeah. Well, Gary, we have to wrap it up, but thank you so much for being on. I could talk to you for hours, I think, on these topics if we were to start to go deeper. So I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a great show. And I look forward to the continued partnership that we have. You guys have been a great sort of big brother to Partner Optimizer, and I look forward to many great things ahead together.
Likewise, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Dina.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Over and out from Channel Partners Conference and Expo.